and we have a few questions. So, ma'am, I've seen multiple videos of yours, and you talk about the stories that we choose to ignore. So, why do you think the previous generations, if they had such a great stories, why did they even bother to ignore them?
Yeah, I believe that the stories that we tell or the stories that we ignore actually define our identity. And what I mean by that is that, when you tell stories about how a man comes home, he's drunk, and then he beats up his wife, and everybody's like, oh, but she's such a good woman, she never says anything, वो इतनी अच्छी है, देवी समान है, उसने कभी उसको कुछ नहीं कहा, कभी उसकी बेइज्जती नहीं की, she's such a good woman. And then that's what you come to expect a good woman to be like, but a woman who stands up for herself and fights back, she becomes like the bad woman, वो तो चुड़ैल है, वो तो इतनी लड़ाकी है, and so on. So how we see stories, we don't actually understand the power that goes with stories. The stories that we tell, the stories that we choose to hide, they define who we are, they define our identity. And I guess this is really about evolution of patriarchy. It's about control. You start to change the stories. There's a lady called Nivedita Menon, who's a really well-known, she teaches feminism at JNU. And in her book, in the opening chapter, she says that it's like wearing nude makeup, where you wear nude makeup so that nude makeup ke saath ye hota hai that you wear makeup to look like you haven't put anything on. And it's exactly like that with these stories that are silenced. There's a huge machinery that is in operation trying to change these stories, silent stories, so that you can keep everything the same. Because, it's a process of evolution, right? Like you said, everything changes with time. It automatically does. But to keep it the same, there's a lot of work that goes into it. And yeah, it was important for control.
I remember your statement in which you said in the West we call them witches, in India we call them devis, and now I can relate. So, but no matter what we say, it is always difficult for a typical Indian family to start a conversation about Kama Sutra or sexual practices. How do you think we can bring that into our daily conversation, into our society?
So I think that, people get very intimidated by the word sexuality. And I think that's why, for me, language is really important. The word Kama Sutra has come to mean something bad. It's come to literally have bad connotation to it. Kabhi bhi naam le do Kama Sutra ka, sab toot ke pad jate hain that it's a book about sex. It's not a book about sex. It's a book about how young men were supposed to live. No, it's made up in 7 sections. The first section is how you're supposed to build your house, how many rooms you're supposed to have, where the rooms should be placed, how many hours a man should spend getting dressed. It's a huge book about how young men with money and social status were supposed to live their best life. That's what the Kama Sutra is actually about. And it has to do with Kama. So we have Dharma, Arth, Kam, which is the social life, your work life, and your personal life. So this is really about your personal life. How we actually start this conversation is by first of all accepting that it can exist. I find that a lot of parents today, if they find in their son's drawer a condom, the ladai that is likely to happen, asman toot ke gir jata hai, how can you have, instead of saying, okay, I understand you're going to do this, I'm so glad you're being safe. That should be your first reaction. Or if a girl comes home and says to you, your daughter comes home and says, somebody acted badly with me, listen to that, what she's saying, and take it up, because silence perpetuates violence. Silence perpetuates abuse. The moment you say, chup ho jao, kaho mat kisi ko. I've had it happen to me. Some guy would hit on me. I'd tell my friends, I'd be like, tune kya kiya tha? Kuch to tune kiya hoga, for this to happen. Now, at this age, I'm now 60. This happened to me 2 years ago, where some guy at a party acted up, and I rang my friend to say, shit, this happened. I couldn't do anything at the party. She yelled at me about it. I was like, I can't believe. So last week at an event that we were at, again, somebody acted weird and the beautiful Lisa Mangaldas was with me and she yelled at this guy. She had him thrown out and it was fantastic. So change is happening.
Ma'am, you tell stories about Behad, and you also told a story about how gender came into existence in your famous TED talk. So do you think we should include these stories in the syllabus of children so that they become a more aware teen?
I think that there's a lot of things that should be included in the syllabus of young people, which is not there. But I'll tell you something. If I had to start a course on sex education, you know what's the first thing I would teach? Literally the first thing. I would teach people that rejection is almost certain. The first thing will happen, you will get a crush on somebody. That person will probably have a crush on somebody else. They will turn you down and it will be okay. Because this is where the problem arises, you know, where somebody says, I have a crush on somebody and he turned away or she turned away from me. And from there, the drama begins because we believe it's only happened to us. If we normalize it, you know, imagine how much easier it will be like, acha ye sabko hota hai. All right, I can get over it more quickly. It's all right. And the other thing is just to acknowledge that these feelings exist inside us. I mean, they do. It's natural. These days, I'm told कि तुम हमारे देश के youth को बर्बाद कर रही हो. It's like, okay. So if I teach, you know, like you teach young people. I had a conversation with some parents and I said, would you teach your child the word pleasure? And they were like, no. And I said, desire? No. Rape? Yeah, that's reality. Murder? Yeah, that's a fact. Like, okay, so rape and murder is real life, but desire and pleasure is bad. So I just think that we are so screwed up in the way that we look at life. And I just think, you know, it's okay. If you're conservative as parents, by all means, don't encourage somebody and say, हाँ ठीक है बेटे तुम जाओ and have an affair. But definitely don't do that. But if your child comes and says, I like so-and-so, listen to them, don't yell at them. Because that's when they go off and do something else that's not right.
You're an extremely captivating speaker.
Thank you.
Experiencing it right. The comment section of your famous TED talk was filled with comments in which everybody was praising your speaking skills. So, if you could remember any remark or any comment that you find the most memorable or interesting about your speaking skills.
So I have to tell you that I stopped looking at the comment section of the TED Talk a long time ago because every now and then, yes, there were a lot of nice comments, but every now and then you'd get a comment like, she's so old, or you know what I mean, like not very nice comments. And right in the beginning, when you enter this field of social media, it can be quite distressing to have, it can be quite upsetting to listen to stuff like, you know, to the trolling. And so somebody said to me, don't read the comments. And I thought that was the best advice that I could ever have got. But in terms of speaking skills, you know, every great leader, every effective leader in the world has used stories to communicate their message. They've had to be good storytellers. That is the biggest tool of influence. If you want to do anything in life, you have to learn how to be able to communicate your story. So for anybody listening out there, तुम और कुछ करो ना करो, whatever you want to do with life, learn how to tell your story.
Ma'am, I have read your book and I was stunned by the aesthetics you talk about. Be it from perfuming and the phases of the moon and everything. But when do we know that someone is mentally prepared and they are not awestruck by the aesthetics that are involved with Kama Sutra or the sexual practices?
So I'm trying to think of what kind of example I can actually give you for this. You know, it's about bringing your mind to get used to something. So you start by thinking about it and you think about it all the time. It's like when you are doing a play and you get a script and you have to rehearse it. So the first thing you'll do when you're rehearsing a script is you learn up your script. And when you learn it up and you repeat it, it's a little edgy. It's not very good, it's like a little stilted and things. You rehearse it a little bit more, it gets a little bit better, and then eventually you got it to that point where it almost seems like it's part of you, the way that you say it. And that's exactly how this works. You, first of all, we think of sex as a sinful thing. Think of sexuality as dirty, as bad. Every part of the body is ganda. Constantly, if somebody is giving you gyan, they're saying, "ये जिस्म कुछ भी नहीं है, आत्मा के बारे सोचो." आत्मा इसी जिस्म में है अभी के लिए. That's the only way that we're dealing with our atma. Okay. Once I'm up there in the bigger consciousness, I won't know how to deal with my atma. I'll be part of a bigger consciousness. So we've been taught to believe that this body is bad, and changing your mindset and trying to get into that idea of the Shringar Ras, making your body beautiful, you're then made to feel guilty about that. Itna makeup laga leti hai, dumb bimbet, etc., etc. So when you get dressed also, you're a bad girl. You're always bad when you're thinking about the body or about Shringar or about beauty. So the first thing is to literally just get there. Overcome those obstacles gradually. That brings you to that point yourself. You don't have to then worry about when you'll get to it. Once those aesthetics become part of your inner mind, and they will, but you have to get there. It's a process.
Okay, ma'am. Last question. In the story of, we saw your story on Nandini, and it was on a hauntingly beautiful set. There was background music and everything else, and you in your famous body language was telling story. So through CineQuora, can we know that Seema Anand would be telling more of such stories on your YouTube channel or wherever?
Yes, absolutely. So I have to tell you, the little behind the scenes honesty over here, that beautiful set was actually my drawing room. And if you could have seen, and I have a very small drawing room, if you could have seen the amount of equipment that was there. We bought black curtains, black sheets. We also cut up black bin bags to cover the walls because the walls are white. Then we had to get different lights to make sure. Then we thought we'd get a lot of candles. So we shot it once with a lot of candles because, when you put 100 candles out, they look beautiful. What we discovered is on camera, you put 100 candles, they all merge into each other. So, ऐसे बहुत अच्छी लगती है. On camera, they look terrible. It became so hot that I was sweating, I couldn't talk properly. So we did it a second time. We put fewer candles, and this time we closed the doors, etc. And then there was absolutely no air, so the candles didn't move. So it looks like these are fake candles, but they were not. The story itself is one of my favorite stories, not only because the story is amazing, but because I think it's the idea, the concept.
Exactly.
Because at the end, he's gone,
Yeah.
and she's still alive. And you wonder, is that what happens when you fall in love? I mean, is it always doomed if you keep it to that passion? Because passion dies. And love will eventually take on a whole different face. It changes. And the important thing is that you have to love yourself and you have to be there for yourself. But I love the ending of that story because it's like, hota kya hai at the end? Like, what will happen with this girl? Because anybody that she chooses to love is going to die. I mean, she's poisoned. So, and sometimes you wonder about yourself that if I am a really unusual person and I'm overly independent and overly strong, and overly is the wrong word. If I'm a very independent, strong person, will I be able to sustain my relationship? Because I know how much ups and downs there have been in my relationship with my husband, which is, I've been married for 36 years now. And I know that a lot of it came from my independence. So where do you compromise on yourself? I don't know, it's a difficult one. But yes, there is a whole series of stories that have been researched and are meant to be told, but telling stories and recording them is very hard work. So I'm kind of taking my time over it just a little bit.